this is Surya Saha, and welcome to the Insurtech Story Podcast, the platform to spread knowledge on insurance innovation, digital disruption, and entrepreneurship. Our website, insurtechstory.com, and we are available on Spotify, Apple, and Google. Today, we are going to discuss on the topic how blockchain can redefine the future of auto insurance. And for now, I'm delighted to welcome our guest, Dr. Praful Chandra, who is the founder of KoineArth, which is a blockchain company that offers supply chain solutions for invoice financing, contract enforcement, and inventory visibility. With over 2 decades of experience in the software industry, Dr. Praful worked with companies like Hewlett Packard for around 10 years and held various positions such as senior research scientist, research manager, and principal research scientist. He also worked as a software engineer at Tachyon Networks, United States, as a design engineer at Texas Instruments as well. He's also worked as a software developer at Infosys, a homegrown company which has made humongous developments in recent times. In July 2017, Dr. Praful started KoineArth to explore how the emerging technology of blockchain can leverage game theory and be combined with AI ML to provide solutions to some of today's major challenges. In 2015, Dr. Praful was featured as one of the top 10 data scientists in India. So, Dr. Praful, welcome on board, and we are truly excited to have you for the show.
Thank you, Surya. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Praful, would you like to tell a bit more on KoineArth and what exactly you and your team are doing with respect to blockchain and in the recent entry in insurance?
Sure. So the background of this story is that we started KoineArth in 2018 with a very simple idea. The idea was that today individuals can come together and create groups for collaborating with each other with tools like WhatsApp, right? But when you look at companies and companies needing to coordinate their operations across enterprise boundaries, we run into a challenge. There are very few tools which allow seamless collaboration across enterprise boundaries. And when I say collaboration, I don't mean chatting or communication tools like Slack. What I'm envisioning, or what we were envisioning, was the ability to create groups between companies in which transactions can be done, or commercial data or personal data can be shared across enterprise boundaries, unlocking value which is tied up in data which is typically stored inside an enterprise but is difficult to share across enterprise boundaries. That
Right.
was the original vision of KoineArth, right? How do we create
Hmm.
these multi-party networks? And of course, blockchain was the right technology to look at it, because that's where blockchain fundamentally plays a role, the ability to create multi-party ecosystems. In the recent news, which we got connected with Surya, we talked about insurance, right? And
Mhm.
insurance is a great example of where multiple entities need to come together, uh, along with the manufacturer and the insurance companies. There are other entities which play a role, and
Right.
we'll talk more about that as we go along. But that was the fundamental idea. How do you enable companies to create what we call groups between with other entities, so that you can enable data sharing across enterprise boundaries and unlock value sitting in data?
I think that fundamentally defines, what blockchain is, that bringing trust among parties who are not related or not, or not able to trust each other because of no connection, whether it's operations or any related activities, right? So that's what the function of blockchain really does.
Right, right. And you put it very well. The issue is that a lot of people don't like that terminology, right? And when we used to talk to enterprises, one of the initial reactions that we got was that we trust our suppliers, or we trust the manufacturer, or we trust the insurance company. Now, I think even though in principle I agree with you, I think a better way of putting the same value proposition is to say that if you can bring auditability in the transactions,
Right.
then it adds value. Because if you say there is a lack of trust, then a lot of people switch off and say that no, there is no
Right.
lack of trust between business partners and us. I'd rather like to
True.
think
Yeah.
about, we trust you, but we would rather have an audit trail, right?
Correct.
And I
Correct.
think that's the way we kind of think about it. That if you can have an audit trail of what has happened, then not only do you create trust among yourselves, but if tomorrow you have to share it with a third party or fourth party, then the audit trail implicitly creates trust as it goes along. So I like the word auditability than lack of trust, because it's more
Yeah,
conducive
yeah,
to how
true.
business is thinking.
Absolutely, absolutely. So being in the blockchain field for years now, and of course, as we spoke, your recent entry in the auto insurance domain, how you think car insurance companies or the manufacturers, automobile manufacturers, can best benefit through blockchain, especially in a time when there are numerous regulatory norms that are coming up to define the future of insurance.
Right. I think if you look at the larger picture of where this is going to go, I think there are going to be three phases, and we are in phase one, and I'll tell you what phase two and phase three are. Phase one is going to start with the original vision that we just talked about, the ability for enterprises to share data with each other. Right now, in the case of automotive sector, the key insight that we built our insurance solution, the usage-based insurance solution, was that the manufacturers were sitting on a lot of data about a vehicle, which the insurance companies would love to get in order to be able to evaluate the risk profile of a driver or a car owner or a vehicle owner or a bike owner, right?
Mhm.
But for regulatory reasons, for privacy reasons, the manufacturers were not able to share this data with the insurance companies, which then
Right.
led to workaround solutions like insurance companies creating hardware-based solutions where they used to sell this device or send this device, increasing the cost of the solution, which the end user had to plug into their vehicle. And that data had to be reported back to the insurance companies for them to be able usage-based insurance, right? And fundamentally, what we said was that if we can make sure that the consent of the end user is taken, and the end user is given control over who they want to share the data with, then we might have a solution. And the realization really came that the data is owned by the end user, but the vehicle manufacturer is the custodian of the data.
Mhm.
So to be able to enable data sharing, the end control has to be left with the end user, while still enabling an ecosystem where manufacturer and the insurance companies can access this data after taking the consent from the end user. So I think the current ecosystem that we kind of solved for in phase one of where we see this is the ability to A, give control to the end user about their data, B, create a mechanism or a software based solution without hardware where after taking the consent from the end user, the manufacturer is able to share data about the driving behavior, aggregated and rolled up, of course, to protect privacy with the insurance company. And then insurance company being able to offer usage-based insurance. So I think that is the phase one of where this technology will change auto insurance.
Right.
Phase two, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah.
So in phase two, and that is also something that we are solving for already, where the insurance companies start to give continuous feedback to the customer about their driving behavior so that they can continue to improve. If you look at the latest cars that are coming out, there is in a lot of these cars, there is a feedback mechanism which tells you how to drive optimally to save fuel, right? Whether it is cars or bikes or electric vehicles, you get a continuous feedback that you should maintain your car at this speed, don't accelerate too much or deaccelerate too much to maximize fuel efficiency. It's a very similar idea that insurance companies, by continuously evaluating the behavior of the driver, can write into the passport, as we'll talk about, but can give this feedback to the end user. Realize that we may. It's not that insurance companies want to maximize the premium. I think that's a false statement. What they want to do is they want to make sure that they are charging the premium should be in proportion to the risk. So if they can give you feedback about reducing the way you take risk on the road with your driving, then they also benefit. So that is the second phase where we see a continuous feedback coming from the insurance companies to the driver themselves. So that is second phase. This is different from the first phase because now you have two or three parties sharing data with each other, reading and writing onto the blockchain, or what we call the passport of the vehicle. And finally, which is slightly further away in the future, is where the claim settlement process also becomes automated. I think that's where we will see AI and blockchain come together, slightly futuristic, but claim processing becoming automated by the insurance claim basically becoming a smart contract where the claim is approved or disapproved. Of course, it can be overridden by manual intervention, but at t equal to zero, it is automated by combining AI and blockchain technology. So those are three phases in which we see blockchain impacting auto insurance.
Right. You have mentioned three key points here. You spoke about data, and there's one side when we have data, we are talking about emerging technology and automation and how data can help in better decision making and strategizing. And on the other side, we are talking about security and safety when we have data.
Mhm.
And blockchain technology is something which is actually solving the later part of it when we
Mm.
really need safety and security and data transferability, which is safely done at a secured manner.
Mhm.
And you have also mentioned, about how data storage and what the automobile industry is currently doing, or at least, what their desires are. And I would like to bring in here one of your recent collaboration. I think that happened last year at the second half. That I think your organization collaborated with MG Aster.
That's right.
So you have helped them, record their data, and it's about and data would of course mean the driving pattern, driver details, owner details, etc., and so on and so forth into your blockchain solution. So, you know, by considering, some of the key elements when we say the marriage of blockchain and insurance, and again, one of the very recent regulatory announcement of how Indian regulator IRDAI is actually announced the approval of its usage-based insurance model for insurers. Can you explain the your blockchain solution that will help monetize data and reduce cost for the end consumer for the insurance industry? Because at the end of the day, whatever we are providing, whatever solution we are giving to the customers like the car manufacturers, it actually it works in a customer centric manner, right? So the end user is what that matters.
Absolutely. So let me explain this. Here is the key idea, right? The key idea that we launched with MG as one of the first customers was the idea of a vehicle digital passport, right?
Right.
Underneath the hood, we use blockchain technology, but we'll forget about that for the time being, since we won't want to have a value proposition discussion, right? Now, why did we call it a passport? Let's start there.
Yeah.
So if you think about the passport that you and me have, we have as individuals, the passport is issued by the government of India, which is kind of a way to identify you. It's your identity. It says who you are, right? So the passport becomes an identity proof issued by a trusted entity called the government of India, or whatever the government to the country that you want belong to as a citizen. Right? Now, if you think about it, the passport also contains different kinds of stampings that are done on it, right? And these stampings are again done by authorized entities. These authorized entities typically are the visa offices or the immigration departments of different countries, right? But the important point in this context is that the passport is a document which is readable as well as writable, but by a limited set of entities, right? You yourself, in fact, cannot write onto your passport. Any tampering of your passport is actually considered illegal, right? So there's a set of authorized entities which can read as well as write onto the passport. And therefore, the passport is treated as a secure, trusted, auditable proof of your travel. Correct?
Yeah.
Now we use the same analogy and said, what is a vehicle digital passport? And we said a vehicle digital passport should start off being a proof of identity of the vehicle, and therefore the natural entity to issue such a vehicle digital passport is the manufacturer of the vehicle. Right? Then we said a limited set of entities should be allowed to read as well as write into the passport. And the first set of entities that we picked up were the insurance companies. We said insurance companies should be able to, along with the manufacturer, so the insurance companies and the manufacturers should be able to read as well as write onto the passport. Now, why did we choose insurance as the first use case for vehicle digital passport is because we felt that insurance was the sector that would benefit most by getting access to the vehicle data. Right? I'll talk about another industry where this is more another set of partners where this is useful, but let's stick to insurance. Now, in this case, what the manufacturer writes into the passport are things like the odometer reading on a periodic basis. Right? Why is the odometer reading important? Odometer fraud is the most common fraud in insurance, right? Or in resale vehicles, also odometer fraud comes up. Then you write aggregate level of your driving behavior into the passport, then service history or other kinds of claims of repair. So over a period of time, the passport starts to become a publicly verifiable or a privately verifiable, depending on how you set it up, history of the vehicle, which is written as well as read by multiple entities, at the time being at least the manufacturers and the insurance companies. Now, why this is interesting is this then becomes the basis on which insurance companies can A, read the data from the passport to calculate the risk score, and then write back into the passport a risk score so that the driver can improve their behavior. And this is done on a periodic basis. You can do this weekly, you can do this fortnightly, you can do this monthly. But that passport starts to become a way for data sharing across enterprises at the level of a vehicle after taking the consent of the end user to enable an end use case like usage based insurance. Right? So the technology solution is called the car passport or the vehicle digital passport. The application is usage based insurance. There are other applications which we won't get into today, but just to give you a flavor, the passport is also useful for companies which deal in used car markets because they can get this history of the vehicle, and if they have a vehicle history from the beginning to see how this car was driven, how it was repaired, how it was serviced, right, then they can offer a higher resale value for the vehicle. Right? So there are other use cases for the passport, but passport becomes a central theme in which multiple entities in the automotive ecosystem read and write data, enabling use cases like usage-based insurance and higher resale value of the vehicle.
Right. Yeah, I think you mentioned about claims, and earlier you mentioned about insurance fraud.
Hmm?
So I think insurance fraud, it is the most important aspect why insurers need technology like blockchain.
Mhm.
And this is fraud is the main threat that insurers are globally fighting. Their $1 billion of losses happens just in one type of product
Hmm.
globally.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and claims, as you mentioned, in auto insurance is one of the uh, type of type of the product value chain that comes at the top when we say auto insurance, and how what's the loss in the industry happening.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think KoineArth is this solution of your passport is it's remarkable, particularly for the Indian market, because we have not come across much in this space.
Right.
We have
Right. Thank you.
we have seen areas in the United States and some parts of Europe and Australia that there are many companies who have started up in this
Hmm.
field, but something homegrown, what KoineArth is doing, it's a phenomenal achievement.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
congratulations to your team.
Thank you, Surya.
Um, so, lastly, Dr. Praful, you have, broadly touched upon various enterprise NFTs. in your various thought leadership spaces, and how
Mhm.
it can actually solve auto insurance problems in various, end customer point of view. Can you explain how this benefits insurtech players and insurance players, especially from the context of data sharing?
Sure. So I think the word NFT has come to be misinterpreted and misused, right? There has been so much written about NFTs in the past 6 months in the context of digital artworks and monkeys and penguins that we have forgotten what the underlying technology
True,
really.
true. Yeah.
So, what is an NFT? Let's start there. An NFT, basically, the best way to think about NFT is that it is a record stored on the blockchain. It's a unit of record, right? Stored on the blockchain. You can go one level higher, and you say, since it's written on the blockchain and it's auditable, then you can think of it as some sort of a certificate, that this is a certificate written. And the important thing about the certificate is that A, it is digital, and B, since it's on a blockchain, it's verifiable digitally, right? So it is written digitally, created digitally, verified digitally, right? But fundamentally, it's a certificate. Now, the vast majority of use cases of the NFT is about certificate of ownership, right? That this asset is owned by this person. That is the most common use of an NFT, and I think that's a valid thing. Now, what gets interesting is two things, right? Two things people often don't talk about. First is that the asset for which the certificate of ownership is being issued can actually be a physical asset and not just a digital asset, right? And if you look at the other regulation that came out recently from the income tax department in India, they actually clarified that NFTs which are backed by tangible assets need to be treated separately and should not be, from a taxation perspective, and should not be combined with NFTs which represent a digital asset only,
Right.
right? So I think that's a good recognition that NFTs fundamentally are a certificate of ownership. And A, they can be for physical assets. They can also be for digital assets, but we'll restrict ourselves to physical assets because we are talking about the auto industry. So the car is the physical asset for us, as the case may be right now. Now, the second thing that people often forget about NFTs is the way the technology is set up. There is something called the NFT metadata, which can be modified, right? You can actually modify the NFT metadata even after the NFT has been allocated. Now, what we do is our vehicle digital passport is set up in such a way that you can think of it as an NFT on a private blockchain, right? Now, a lot of NFT enthusiasts and pure decentralized fanatics will not like the language that I'm using because typically when we say NFT, most people take it to understand that the NFT is a record of or a certificate of something on a public blockchain. But the way we have designed our technology is that you can create this passport on the private blockchain and you can think of it as a private NFT or an enterprise NFT. But you can also convert it, if you want, into a traditional public blockchain NFT. It's a one-to-one mapping, right? And we leave the choice to the end customer and the manufacturer and the insurance companies whether they want to convert it into a public NFT or not. But the vehicle digital passport that I talked about in the previous question is actually an enterprise NFT on a private blockchain, which can be
Mhm.
converted to a traditional NFT on a public blockchain, right? And the idea of writing into the passport that I was talking about is actually metadata modification of the NFT, right? So it's a lot of geek language that I'm speaking, but underneath the hood, the value proposition is the vehicle digital passport combined with data sharing between enterprises. It is enabled by an underlying technology called blockchain, and the implementation detail of the vehicle digital passport is by default as a digital asset or an NFT, as we say, on the private blockchain, which can be converted to an NFT on the public blockchain. So it's actually the same thing. It is just that the different terminologies used by different people creates more confusion. But for us, it's the same thing.
Right. So can we say digital passport is essentially helping automakers um, uh, work on their, not just the automakers, their partners like the insurers to help reduce insurance fraud in auto insurance. And definitely that helps the genuine customers who are actually putting forward their claims, but sometimes end up not getting it through.
I think what we are comfortable saying where we are right now in our journey
Mhm.
is that the passport enables B2B data sharing
Right.
between the car manufacturer and the insurance companies. One immediate application of that is usage-based insurance.
Mhm.
The reduction in fraud we believe will happen, but I do not have data to back it up yet.
Right, right, right. Okay. So, but certainly this is, your solution, digital passport, is actually one of the first of its kind for the Indian automakers, at least at this point of time.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. I think the only other, there are a couple of automotive companies around the world which have tried something like this, right? There's a car called Alfa Romeo, right? I believe from
Right. Yeah.
Stellantis, and they launched something called a car NFT, which is a very similar thing. They did not use the word car passport, but they were also trying to do the same thing, right? They launched something called car NFTs. Then there is Daimler, which about 2 weeks ago announced that they are looking at enabling B2B data sharing in their downstream supply chain and allowing monetization of data. But in India, we're definitely the first, and worldwide also, we are either the first or the second, depending on how you count Alfa Romeo launch.
Right. No, I think this is some brilliant insights, particularly on auto insurance. And
Right,
this is something that every household today or tomorrow would be needing it. And
right,
it shouldn't just end with Aster, but it should also spread across to every vehicles that's you know there, particularly in the mid segment in the
right,
country.
right. No, that's what
So
we are also hoping for.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it should solve the common man's problem that we all are looking at. I mean, fantastic, phenomenal journey, KoineArth, and your team has, made us witness, and it's a brilliant growth story. And wish the team very, very best going forward. So,
Thank you so
thank,
much, Surya.
thank you so much, Dr. Praful. Fantastic discussion. Thank you for sharing your thoughts today, and of course, always a delight to have you as our guest. And
Thank you.
lastly, to wrap this up, thank you for listening and see you at our next episode. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye for now.